Michael Harrison had everything under control until one moment shattered his perfectly ordered life. What he saw that day left him speechless, but the truth behind it would change everything. Stay until the end to uncover the shocking twist. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Michael moved through the grand corridors of his mansion with the same mechanical precision that defined every aspect of his life. His days were meticulously scheduled, his business empire thrived under his control, and his home ran like a well-oiled machine. There was no room for surprises. That was why, as he passed by the expansive glass windows overlooking the grounds, what he saw made him stop in his tracks. His 12-year-old son, Ethan, was dancing, but he wasn't alone. With him was Jessica, the house cook, a woman he had barely given a second thought to since she was hired 6 months ago. The sight was so unexpected that Michael had to blink several times, convinced his mind was playing tricks on him. Yet there they were, moving across the lawn in perfect synchrony. Ethan's movements were hesitant and unsteady, yet filled with unusual concentration. He stumbled more than once, but rather than display frustration, he laughed, a genuine, carefree laugh that Michael hadn't heard in years. Ever since his wife's passing, Ethan had become reserved, locked in his own world, and now there he was, smiling because of her. Jessica moved with an elegance Michael had never associated with a cook. Every step and motion was precise and deliberate, not playful improvisation, but the execution of someone trained in the art of movement. She wasn't just indulging a child's whim, she was guiding him and teaching him. A cold unease spread through Michael's chest. He did not like that someone else, especially a mere employee, held such influence over his son. The longer he watched, the more his irritation grew. He had no patience for this. With a stiff posture, he made his way outside, his footsteps sharp against the stone path. As he approached, both Jessica and Ethan noticed him. The boy froze, his earlier joy vanishing into apprehension, while Jessica remained composed, merely wiping her hands on her apron before straightening to meet Michael's gaze. "What is going on here?" Michael asked coolly and controlledly. Ethan lowered his head, but Jessica met his stare without hesitation. "We were practicing, sir," she said simply. "Practicing what exactly?" Michael pressed. "Your son wanted to learn how to dance," he explained as he turned his attention to Ethan. After a moment of shuffling his feet, Ethan admitted quietly, and a sharp pang of guilt struck Michael. "I never noticed. I never asked, and why didn't you tell me?" Ethan shrugged slightly, but before he could answer, Jessica spoke up, because he had no one to practice with. Michael narrowed his eyes at her. There was something in her tone, firm and unwavering, that irritated him. "This isn't your job," he stated. "No, it isn't," Jessica agreed calmly. "Then why are you doing it?" she asked, crossing her arms with an unreadable expression. "Because he asked me to," she replied. Michael turned back to his son. "Is that true?" he asked. Ethan nodded, and a heavy silence stretched between them. Michael exhaled slowly, irritation clawing at the edges of his composure. Although he had no logical reason to be so bothered, something about the situation felt off, like there was a hidden layer he couldn't see, and that was unacceptable. Shifting his gaze back to Jessica, Michael said, "I need to speak with you alone." Ethan looked at them both, his brows knitting together with concern, but Jessica remained calm. "As you wish, sir," she replied. Michael turned sharply and headed back into the house without waiting for her to follow. Yet as he stepped inside, he cast a glance over his shoulder. Ethan leaned toward Jessica, whispering something to which she responded quietly. Her expression was unreadable, and the boy let out a small, conspiratorial smile. A chill ran down Michael's spine. There was something more to this, something he wasn't seeing, and he was determined to uncover it. In his office, Michael sat with his fingers steepled beneath his chin, staring at his computer screen. The information before him was both ordinary and unsettling. Jessica Reed, 29 years old, had been hired as a cook in his mansion 6 months ago. No criminal record, no troubling history, nothing stood out. On the surface, she was exactly what she appeared to be, a house employee who did her job and stayed out of trouble. And yet, Michael couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more hidden beneath the surface. His instincts had never failed him before in business. He had built an empire on knowing when something wasn't as it appeared. Now, those same instincts screamed that Jessica was not just a cook. He typed her name into a broader search, adding a keyword that had been nagging at him ever since he saw her dance: Jessica Reed ballerina. At first, nothing came up. Then, buried beneath articles and irrelevant results, he found a news article from 7 years ago. Michael leaned forward, his eyes scanning the headline: Young ballet prodigy disappears from the stage without explanation. His pulse quickened. He clicked the link, and as the page loaded, a photo of a much younger Jessica appeared on the screen. Dressed in a pristine white ballet costume and standing on a grand stage with arms raised in perfect form, her expression was serene and confident, nothing like the reserved cook who worked in his kitchen. The article spoke of a rising star in the ballet world, a dancer with an unmatched gift. She had performed in prestigious theaters and was on the brink of an international career when, suddenly and without scandal or public incident, she vanished from the spotlight. There were no interviews, no explanations, she was simply gone. Michael sat back in his chair and exhaled sharply. Why would someone with such talent abandon her future? And how did she end up cooking in his house? The questions piled up, and he knew he wouldn't get answers just by staring at a screen. He needed to hear the truth from her. Standing abruptly, Michael strode out of his office and made his way to the kitchen. There, as expected, Jessica was methodically cleaning the countertops. She glanced up as he entered, her expression neutral but guarded. "Mr. Harrison," she greeted while wiping her hands on a dish towel. "Is there something you need?" Michael didn't waste time. He pulled out his phone and placed it on the counter so that the article about her was clearly displayed on the screen. "Care to explain this?" he demanded, for the first time since he had met her. He saw genuine surprise flicker across her face, brief, but unmistakable. She did not immediately respond. Instead, she looked at the screen, then back at him. "You've been searching for me," she said in a calm voice that carried an undercurrent of caution. Michael folded his arms and replied, "I don't like mysteries in my home." After a long pause, she finally spoke in a quiet tone, "I suppose I should have expected this. You're not the type of man to let things go unanswered." Michael said nothing and only waited. She looked at the article again, her fingers brushing the edge of the counter. "I was a dancer," she admitted softly. "A long time ago. You were more than just a dancer." Michael gently corrected her, "You were a star," and a bitter smile touched her lips, a star that burned out before it could shine. Michael studied her carefully. "Why did you leave?" he asked. She hesitated, the conflict in her eyes betraying her inner struggle. Finally, she sighed and said, "Because I lost everything." Her voice was quieter now, more vulnerable than Michael had ever heard. He did not push her, he simply waited for her to continue. "When I was 22, dance was my entire world. It was all I knew, all I cared about. I trained endlessly, pushing myself beyond limits because I believed I was meant for something greater," she explained, pausing before adding, "and I wasn't alone." Michael frowned. "Who?" he asked softly. "My fiancé," she whispered, "Andrew. He was a dancer too. We had trained together since childhood. We were supposed to take on the world together. We were offered an international tour, a dream we had worked for our entire lives." Michael's stomach tightened as he anticipated what was coming next. "The day before our biggest performance, Andrew was hit by a car," she continued, her eyes growing distant as she recalled the moment, and he died instantly. Michael remained silent, the weight of her words settling heavily between them. After that, I couldn't dance, she continued softly. I couldn't even hear music without feeling like a part of me had been ripped away. Everything I had built my life around was gone, and so I disappeared. Michael let her words sink in. He had expected something tragic, but not a grief so raw that it drove her to abandon her entire identity. So you became a cook? He asked gently. Jessica let out a wry laugh, though no humor colored her tone. I needed something far removed from dance, something practical, something safe. Michael exhaled, rubbing his face, and then she met his gaze with an unreadable expression. Now I teach your son, she said, and those words hit Michael harder than he expected. He knew she did not mean it as a challenge, yet it stung. She had walked away from dance, yet for some reason, she chose to share it with Ethan. Why? What made you break your own rule for my son? Michael asked slowly. Because he reminds me of myself at his age, she replied softly. Michael stiffened and pressed. How? Jessica's expression softened as she answered. Because he doesn't smile. Those words struck Michael like a blow. He clenched his jaw, unable to deny the truth. Ever since his wife's death, Ethan had faded, retreating into books and routines. Michael had assumed that giving Ethan stability and security was enough, but Jessica had seen what he had missed. He smiles when he dances, she added, and I think he just needed someone to listen. Michael swallowed hard and turned away slightly. He had spent years ensuring his son had everything except, perhaps, what mattered most. After a long pause, Michael exhaled, What are you planning to do? Jessica tilted her head and asked, You mean will I force him to dance as a cure-all? Shaking her head, she said, No, I just want him to feel something again. The rest is up to him. Michael sat in silence, absorbing her words. He had prided himself on being in control, on knowing everything that happened in his house, and yet he had been blind to his son's happiness. Finally, his voice was soft as he said, I don't like people interfering in my family. Jessica did not flinch. Nor do I like seeing children who have forgotten how to be children, she replied. A heavy silence fell between them, and Michael knew deep down that she was right. In the grand dining room, Ethan stood with his small fists clenched as he gathered the courage to speak. The chandeliers cast a warm glow over the long table, but the tension in the air was unmistakable. Michael Harrison sat at the head of the table, his face unreadable, as he watched Ethan shift nervously from foot to foot. Finally, Ethan took a deep breath and said, I want to compete in a dance tournament. The silence that followed was suffocating. Michael deliberately set his silverware down, his sharp gaze fixed on Ethan. A dance contest? He repeated as if testing the words. Ethan nodded firmly, Yes, I want to compete. Michael exhaled and asked, And when did you decide this? Ethan hesitated only briefly before replying, A while ago I've been training with Jessica, and she believes I'm ready. Michael's eyes flickered at the mention of Jessica. Does she? He asked in an inscrutable tone, but Ethan held his ground. Yes, and I believe I am too. Michael truly looked at his son and saw something that had not been there before, a fire, a determination that went beyond mere childish excitement. Yet, it did not erase the concerns twisting in his chest. Ethan, this isn't a game. Competitions are about discipline, pressure, and expectation, Michael warned. Ethan straightened and said, I know, and I'm ready for that. Michael studied him for a long moment before finally exhaling, Fine, but if you do this, do it properly, no half measures. You must commit fully. Ethan's face lit up with a genuine grin that stunned Michael for a moment as he replied, Thank you, Dad. Later that evening, Michael found Jessica in the kitchen, meticulously chopping vegetables, with the precision of someone used to structure and discipline. She looked up as he entered, clearly sensing his purpose. "I knew you'd ask," Michael said, folding his arms. Jessica wiped her hands on a towel and replied, "I suspected you thought he was ready." Michael continued, "He has the passion and the drive. The discipline will come with time. If he does this, he'll face failure and rejection. He might not handle it." Jessica studied him for a moment and then said, "Or perhaps you're the one who isn't ready to handle it." Michael's jaw tightened, but he did not argue. "If we do this, we do it right. That means you will train him properly, no soft encouragement. He needs to be pushed." Jessica's lips curled slightly. "I wasn't planning on going easy on him." The next morning, training officially began. Michael watched from the sidelines as Jessica transformed from the soft-spoken cook into a strict, focused mentor. Ethan moved through the exercises with determination, sweat beading on his forehead as Jessica corrected his posture, foot placements, and rhythm. Her voice was firm yet never harsh as she instructed, "You missed the beat." Ethan wiped his brow and started over. Observing from the doorway, Michael couldn't help but notice how much his son had changed. Once quiet and hesitant, always following rather than leading, Ethan now possessed a stubborn edge, a refusal to give up even when things were hard. Hours passed, and when the session ended, Ethan collapsed onto the floor, panting heavily. Jessica handed him a bottle of water, which he accepted gratefully. "You did well today," she said simply, and Ethan grinned up at her. "That means a lot coming from you." Michael remained silent, watching their interaction with a deep sense of unease, something more than jealousy, something he couldn't quite place. As the tournament approached, training intensified. Ethan pushed himself harder, working late into the evenings, repeating routines over and over. The playful excitement of dancing had transformed into pure determination, and Michael, despite his initial reservations, found himself drawn to every session as he watched his son evolve. One evening, after a particularly grueling session, Ethan sat at the dining table, barely touching his food. Michael noticed the way his son's leg bounced beneath the table, his nerves barely contained. "What's on your mind?" Michael asked softly. Ethan hesitated before saying, "There's another dancer in the tournament, Tyler Bennett. He has won 2 years in a row." Michael nodded slowly, and Ethan bit his lip. "He messaged me and said I don't stand a chance." Michael's grip on his glass tightened. "And what do you think?" he pressed. Ethan admitted, "I don't know." Leaning forward slightly, Michael said, "Listen, Ethan, people only try to break you down when they see you as a threat. If Tyler is reaching out, it means he is already worried." Ethan's eyes widened as he shifted. "You really think so?" he asked. Michael nodded, "I do." For the first time during their conversation, Ethan smiled a small, genuine smile. "Then I guess I'll just have to prove him wrong," he declared. Michael exhaled, watching his son with genuine admiration. He was no longer the boy hidden behind books and routines. He was becoming something stronger. For the first time in a long time, Michael found himself looking forward to seeing what his son would become. The theater buzzed with energy. Dancers warmed up backstage, stretching, practicing footwork, and mentally preparing for their performances. Whispers from coaches and the steady rhythm of nervous breathing filled the space. Ethan adjusted the straps on his dance shoes, his hands trembling slightly. Michael watched from a few feet away, his expression unreadable. He had always thrived on control, but today his son was stepping onto that stage alone, and there was nothing he could do to influence the outcome. Jessica stood beside Ethan and placed a steady hand on his shoulder. "Breathe," she said simply. Ethan exhaled slowly and nodded. "You've done the work. Now just dance." Michael observed them from a distance, feeling like an outsider, as the ease between them contrasted with his own need for control. Jessica had given Ethan a sense of confidence rooted in passion rather than expectation. Michael clenched his jaw and pushed the thought away. There was no time for reflection. Then the announcer's voice echoed through the speakers. "Next, we welcome Ethan Harrison to the stage." Ethan swallowed hard and turned toward Michael, searching for reassurance, approval, perhaps even permission. Michael gave a single nod and said firmly, "Go." Ethan stepped onto the stage. The lights were blinding, and the silence of the audience pressed on him like a weight. He took his place at center stage, his heart pounding in his ears. For a moment, doubt crept in. What if I fail? What if I forget the steps? What if Tyler was right? Then he saw his father in the first row, watching with an intensity he had never seen before. There was no judgment in Michael's expression, no expectation of perfection, only steady, real support. Next to him, Jessica gave him the smallest nod. As the music began, Ethan let go. His body moved before his mind could second-guess him. The first step was precise, the second even smoother. He surrendered to the rhythm, each movement flowing seamlessly into the next. The stage became his world, and the pressure melted away. He wasn't there to win, he was there to dance. The final sequence was the most challenging, a spin and leap that Ethan had struggled with for weeks. He braced himself, pushed off the floor, and for a brief moment, time seemed to slow. Then he landed lightly and steadily. The music stopped, followed by a second of silence, and then the applause erupted. Ethan stood there, chest rising and falling, his skin damp with sweat. Scanning the crowd, he saw his father clapping vigorously and Jessica with eyes shining with pride. Soon after, the results were announced, and the winner of this year's competition is Tyler Bennett. The audience cheered as Tyler stepped forward, his confident smirk unwavering. Ethan swallowed hard and maintained a neutral expression despite his loss. But before he could fully process his disappointment, the announcer continued, "We would also like to present a special award for artistic expression, recognizing not just technical skill but passion, connection, and heart. This award goes to Ethan Harrison." The crowd erupted once again. Ethan blinked in surprise as his name echoed through the theater. He stepped forward and accepted the medal placed around his neck. It wasn't the first place trophy, but as he turned toward the audience, his father's expression told him everything he needed to know. Later, while removing his dance shoes in the dressing room, Tyler approached him. "Not bad," he said, twirling his own trophy. "You might actually be decent next year." Ethan smiled slightly and replied, "Next year, I'm winning, Dad." Tyler smirked, "We'll see about that." Outside the theater, Michael and Jessica waited. When Ethan finally emerged, Michael placed a hand on his shoulder and asked, "How do you feel?" Ethan paused before answering, "Proud." Michael nodded, "Good," as they walked toward the car. Ethan glanced at the medal in his hand. It wasn't about winning or losing, it was about proving to himself that he belonged on that stage, that he was capable, and that next time he would be even better. Michael watched his son and saw something new, something stronger. For the first time in a long time, he felt not just pride but something deeper. He had spent so many years focused on control and perfection that he had forgotten what truly mattered, the journey, not just the outcome. Ethan looked up and asked, "Can I keep training?" Michael smiled, a rare, genuine smile. "Of course. We're just getting started." Michael had never expected that a single moment could change everything, but now nothing would ever be the same again. It had been nearly 15 years since that fateful day on the stage when Ethan Harrison, once a timid boy with a quiet passion for dance, had transformed into one of America's most celebrated dance coaches. His reputation as an innovative mentor and inspirational leader was known from the bustling streets of New York City to the sunlit studios of Los Angeles. Yet despite the glittering accolades and packed auditoriums, Ethan's heart still bore the scar of a loss that had changed everything. Late one autumn afternoon, in a modest yet elegant dance studio nestled in a renovated warehouse in downtown Chicago, Ethan stood before a wall of mirrors that reflected his every movement. The room was filled with the rhythmic sounds of soft piano melodies and the patter of determined footsteps. Every detail of the studio was steeped in memory, a tribute to the woman who had taught him not only to dance, but to feel life in its fullest. On a faded black and white photograph, framed in gold and mounted on the wall, the smiling face of Jessica Reed was captured in a moment of pure, unadulterated grace. Her eyes sparkled with a mischievous kindness, and her gentle smile had once been the beacon that guided Ethan through his darkest times. Even as the music played, Ethan's mind wandered back to those tumultuous years following her tragic passing. He recalled the day when, in a desperate bid to save Jessica from a mysterious and cruel illness, he had sold almost everything he owned: his home, his prized dance studio, and even his savings. He had believed that money might buy a miracle, that it might be enough to secure the treatments Jessica so desperately needed. But despite his fervent efforts and endless hope, the disease claimed her life. The pain of that loss still echoed in his soul, a reminder of the fragility of dreams and the impermanence of life. One chilly November morning, as golden leaves drifted slowly from the towering trees lining the streets outside the studio, Ethan gathered his small team of instructors for their weekly meeting. The room was filled with a mixture of energy and quiet reverence, a space where passion for dance met the bittersweet realities of life. "Good morning, everyone," Ethan began, his voice steady yet laden with unspoken memories. His dark eyes, filled with both determination and sorrow, swept across the circle of young instructors. "Today, I want to talk about legacy. Not just the legacy of the steps we teach, but the legacy of kindness, hope, and resilience." Marissa, a bright-eyed instructor with an infectious smile, raised her hand. "Coach, is this about Jessica?" she asked softly, the question hanging in the air like a delicate note in a well-choreographed routine. Ethan paused, his gaze drifting toward the framed photograph on the wall. "Yes," he replied, his voice quivering ever so slightly. "It's about Jessica. She believed that dance was more than movement, it was a way to express the deepest parts of our souls. And I want to honor her memory by giving back to those who needed most." He went on to explain his vision: a network of community centers across the country dedicated to providing free dance education and mentorship to homeless and underprivileged children. "We're not just teaching dance," he said passionately. "We're teaching these kids to find their voice, to overcome adversity, and to believe that they can shine despite the darkness around them." The room erupted with enthusiastic murmurs and nods of agreement. For Ethan, the idea was not only a tribute to Jessica, but also a mission to create a better future for those who had nothing. He recalled how, in the years following her passing, he had found solace in nurturing the raw talent of her niece, Lily Reed. Lily had been just a little girl when Jessica's illness began. With her warm eyes and quick smile, Lily had always reminded Ethan of the vibrant spirit that Jessica once embodied. When Jessica passed away, Lily was left orphaned and alone. Moved by a deep sense of responsibility and love, Ethan took Lily under his wing, not only as a dancer, but as a surrogate family member. He poured his heart into training her, determined that she would one day become a beacon of hope in the world of dance. It was in a modest studio in the suburbs of Chicago where Lily's journey truly began. One rainy afternoon, as droplets of water raced down the studio's large windows, Ethan found Lily practicing alone, her movements filled with both grace and raw emotion. He stepped quietly behind her and cleared his throat softly. "Lily," he said gently, "can I talk to you for a moment?" Lily stopped mid-step, her eyes bright and curious. "Yes, Coach Ethan." Ethan sat down on a nearby bench, patting the space beside him. "You know, when I was your age, I never imagined that dance would lead me here into a world filled with light and darkness, hope and loss. But every step I take is a tribute to someone who believed in me. Jessica believed in me. And I believe in you." Lily's eyes glistened as she listened. "I miss her, Coach. I miss her every day." Ethan nodded solemnly. "I do too, Lily. But she lives on in every dance we share, every move we make. I want you to become not just a great dancer, but a symbol of what we can achieve when we overcome our struggles. I want you to be a light for those who have lost their way." Their conversation carried on for what felt like hours, filled with memories, tears, and shared hopes for the future. Ethan's words were both tender and inspiring, and Lily knew that she was destined for greatness not just on the stage, but in the hearts of those she would one day help. Years passed, and Lily blossomed under Ethan's rigorous and compassionate training. Her natural talent was undeniable, and soon she began winning local competitions. As word of her extraordinary ability spread, she was invited to participate in national championships and then international events. Lily's rise to stardom was not just a personal triumph, it was a beacon of hope for a new generation. At one pivotal competition in New York City, the Grand Theater was filled with the buzz of anticipation and the hum of sophisticated conversations. Backstage, Lily paced nervously, her thoughts a jumble of excitement and anxiety. Ethan, now in his early 40s and carrying the weight of his past with a dignified resilience, approached her with a calm smile. "Lily, remember what we talked about," he said softly, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Dance isn't just about the steps, it's about telling your story. Let your heart guide you tonight." Lily took a deep breath, closing her eyes for a moment as she centered herself. "I won't let you down, Coach. I'll make sure everyone sees the light you always saw in me." As the curtains rose, the spotlight bathed Lily in a warm glow. The performance was mesmerizing, each movement a testament to years of dedication, sacrifice, and hope. In the audience, among the glittering elites of the dance world, there were a few familiar faces, former students, colleagues, and even a few who had once doubted the power of dance to change lives. But none of that mattered in that moment. What mattered was the beauty of the performance, the raw emotion, and the connection between Lily and the music. After the show, in the hushed corridors of the theater, Ethan and Lily shared a quiet moment. "You were incredible tonight," Ethan said, his voice thick with emotion. "You carried not only your own dreams, but the legacy of everyone who believed in you." Lily's eyes shone with unshed tears. "I couldn't have done it without you, Coach. You saved me when I had nothing. I want to do more than dance, I want to give back just like you." It was with that shared vision that Ethan and Lily embarked on their most ambitious project yet. Together, they founded several community centers across the nation, naming them in honor of Jessica Reed, the woman whose life had touched them both so profoundly. The centers were designed to provide free dance education and mentorship to homeless and underprivileged children. In each center, the walls were adorned with vibrant murals celebrating the joy of movement, and every classroom buzzed with the energy of young hearts ready to embrace a brighter future. At the inaugural center in Chicago, the grand opening was held on a crisp spring day. Families from all walks of life gathered in the newly refurbished community hall. Balloons and streamers hung from the high ceilings, and a stage was set for the first free dance class. Ethan and Lily stood side by side, addressing the crowd with heartfelt sincerity. "Welcome, everyone," Ethan began, his deep, resonant voice filling the room. "Today, we celebrate not just dance, but the spirit of hope and resilience. This center is named for Jessica Reed, a woman who taught us that even in the darkest times, there is beauty to be found. Our mission is to give every child, regardless of their background, the chance to discover the beauty within themselves." Lily stepped forward, her eyes bright with determination. we believe that dance can change lives. It can heal wounds, build confidence, and inspire dreams. Here, you will learn to express yourselves, to find strength in movement, and most importantly, to believe that you have a place in this world. The audience responded with a resounding cheer, and the opening class began. Children who had once felt invisible now danced with a passion and freedom that lit up the room. Ethan watched with a mixture of pride and bittersweet remembrance, knowing that every graceful leap and every tentative step was a tribute to the legacy of the woman he had lost. In the month that followed, the centers flourished. Ethan and Lily worked tirelessly, often side by side, to secure funding, recruit volunteer instructors, and build partnerships with local organizations. Their days were long and filled with both administrative challenges and moments of pure joy, like the time a shy young girl, after weeks of training, performed a solo that brought tears to everyone's eyes. One chilly winter evening, as snowflakes danced outside the center's large windows, Ethan sat with a group of parents in a cozy meeting room. The conversation turned to the impact the center was having on their children. "I never thought my son would find a place where he felt accepted," said Maria, a single mother whose 10-year-old had once wandered the streets with no one to call home. "Here, he has found a community of family." Ethan smiled gently. "That's exactly what we're here to do. Dance is not just a series of steps, it's a way to connect, to heal, and to build a future together." Across town, in another center opened in Los Angeles, Lily led a class of teenagers through a series of warm-up exercises. The music pulsed through the room, and as the students moved, their faces transformed with a mixture of concentration and liberation. In between the routines, Lily often paused to offer words of encouragement. "You all have a unique light inside of you," she would say, her tone warm and genuine. "Every movement you make tells a story. Don't be afraid to let that story shine." Her words resonated deeply, and many of the teenagers, who had once felt the sting of neglect and abandonment, began to blossom under her guidance. They practiced for hours, their dedication a testament to the power of hope and determination. And every time Lily saw a spark of confidence in one of her students, she remembered Jessica and the promise she had once made to keep her legacy alive. One evening, after a particularly long day at the centers, Ethan and Lily sat together on the steps of the Chicago facility, the city lights twinkling in the distance. The cool night air was filled with the soft hum of distant traffic and the occasional laughter from inside the center. "Do you ever wonder," Ethan began quietly, "if Jessica knew how far her influence would reach?" His voice was soft, almost lost in the night's symphony. Lily leaned her head on his shoulder. "I like to believe that she is smiling down on us, proud of what we've accomplished. Every time a child finds their voice through dance, I think that as her legacy shining through." Ethan sighed, his eyes reflecting both joy and lingering sorrow. "I sold everything to try and save her. I thought money could conquer the impossible. But some things are beyond our control." Lily reached up and gently touched his hand. "You gave everything for her, Coach. And though we couldn't save her, we saved countless lives because of her. That's the real miracle." Their conversation lingered in the quiet night, each word a thread weaving together the tapestry of their shared past and hopeful future. Months turned into years, and the network of community centers grew steadily. The Jessica Reed Dance and Hope Centers became a national symbol of compassion, a haven where children in need could discover the transformative power of art. Ethan's reputation as a compassionate mentor deepened, and Lily emerged as a dazzling star on the international dance scene. Yet, despite all the accolades and accomplishments, both never forgot the cost of their success, the loss that had sparked this entire journey. At a grand fundraising gala held at a historic theater in New York City, Ethan took the stage to speak about their mission. Dressed in a tailored suit that hinted at his transformation from a grieving young man into a leader of change, he addressed a crowd of philanthropists, community leaders, and proud parents. Tonight, we celebrate not only dance, but the resilience of the human spirit, Ethan said, his voice echoing with quiet strength. Jessica Reed once taught me that even in our darkest hours, the light of hope can guide us forward. Her legacy lives on in every child who finds solace and inspiration in the art of movement. He paused, scanning the crowd, his eyes catching Lily's radiant smile from the front row. Together, we have built centers that offer free dance education, nurturing talent, confidence, and community. And while the road has been long and sometimes painful, every terror and every triumph has been worth it. As the audience applauded, Ethan stepped down and joined Lily, whose own journey had taken her from the quiet halls of his studio to the dazzling stages of the world. In a backstage conversation filled with both laughter and the lingering melancholy of memories past, Lily confided, "I know I owe everything to you, Coach. And I want to make sure that every child who walks through our doors feels that same sense of belonging." Ethan embraced her warmly. "We did it together, Lily. And we will continue to do it until every child finds the strength to dance through life as storms." In the years that followed, the centers expanded to cities across the United States. In each location, children who had once known only hardship now discovered the joy of movement. They learned to express their pain, their dreams, and their victories through dance. Every center became a living tribute to Jessica Reed, a symbol of hope, resilience, and the transformative power of art. At one center in Detroit, a young boy named Marcus, whose eyes shone with determination despite his ragged clothes, performed a solo that brought tears to the eyes of everyone watching. His performance was a raw, powerful testament to the beauty born from struggle. After his dance, he found himself embraced by teachers and peers alike. That evening, as Marcus sat with his newfound friends in a circle, one of the volunteer instructors remarked, "This is what Jessica would have wanted, a chance for every child to shine, no matter how dark the night." Marcus simply smiled, his heart full of gratitude. In that moment, the spirit of Jessica Reed and the enduring legacy of Ethan and Lily's vision was palpable, a reminder that even the most fragile souls can become luminous beacons of hope. For Ethan, every day was a blend of triumph and remembrance. In the quiet moments before dawn, he often found himself in the empty studio, the echoes of past classes, and the ghost of Jessica's laughter whispering in the silence. He would run his fingers along the edges of the old photograph, remembering the days when a single dance could change a life. And though the pain of her loss would never fully disappear, he carried it as a reminder of the cost of passion and the beauty of love that transcends even death. On one such early morning, while the city was still wrapped in slumber, Ethan sat on the studio floor with a cup of black coffee, watching the sunrise filter through the dusty windows. The light painted the room in hues of orange and pink, and in that gentle glow, he could almost see Jessica smiling back at him. "Thank you for keeping her memory alive," he whispered softly, as if speaking directly to her spirit. In those tender moments, Ethan understood that every step, every leap, and every pirouette was a tribute, a silent promise that no matter how hard life became, the dance would always go on. The legacy of Jessica Reed now lived on, in a multitude of ways, in the brilliant performances of young dancers like Lily, in the lives of countless children who found refuge and hope at the centers, and in the quiet determination of a man who had turned his personal tragedy into a beacon of light for others. Ethan and Lily, united by love, loss, and an unwavering commitment to change, continued to forge new paths, both on and off the stage. Their collaboration blossomed into a legacy of mentorship, community, and art. Together, they hosted annual galas, outreach programs, and scholarship opportunities that bridged the gap between hardship and hope. They created workshops where children could learn not only dance, but also life skills, building self-esteem, fostering creativity, and forging bonds that would last a lifetime. During one particularly memorable workshop in a dilapidated community center in Philadelphia, Ethan addressed a group of teenagers gathered in a circle. "Dance," he said, "is the language of our souls. It doesn't matter where you come from or what you have been through. What matters is that you have the courage to express who you truly are. Today, you have the chance to rewrite your story." One of the teenagers, a lanky boy named Jamal, with bright eyes full of hope, raised his hand. "Coach, do you really think we can change our lives through dance?" he asked, his voice trembling with both uncertainty and optimism. Ethan knelt beside him, placing a firm hand on his shoulder. "I know it in my heart," he replied softly. "Every single one of you has the power to transform your pain into something beautiful. You just have to trust in the process and believe in yourselves. That is the true magic of dance." The room fell silent as Ethan's words sank in. In that moment, the center was more than just a place to learn dance. It was a sanctuary where every child could reclaim their dignity and embrace their dreams. As the years turned into decades, the impact of the Jessica Reed Dance and Hope Centers became undeniable. New generations of dancers emerged, each carrying a piece of the legacy forward. Ethan and Lily's tireless work inspired a movement, a cultural shift in which art and community became intertwined, nurturing hearts and minds in ways that extended far beyond the confines of a dance studio. One summer evening in a bustling park in San Francisco, a young girl named Ava, whose life had been marked by hardship, performed an impromptu dance during a community festival. Her movements were spontaneous yet filled with a deep, unspoken story. After her performance, a small group of onlookers gathered around, applauding not only her technical skill, but the raw emotion that radiated from her every gesture. Later that night, as the cool ocean breeze mingled with the warm glow of the city lights, Ava found herself sitting on a park bench next to an elderly man. "I've never felt so alive," she said quietly, her eyes reflecting both joy and vulnerability. The old man smiled gently. "That's the power of dance," he replied. "It gives us a voice when words fail and brings light to even the darkest corners of our hearts." In that brief exchange, the cycle of hope continued, a testament to the enduring legacy of those who dared to dream. For Ethan, every success story was a bittersweet reminder of the sacrifices made along the way. He still mourned the loss of Jessica each day, but he also saw her spirit alive in every graceful movement and every childless radiant smile. In the quiet moments of reflection, he often revisited the memories of the past, of a time when a single dance had sparked a revolution in his life and the lives of others. At a celebratory banquet marking the 20th anniversary of the centers, Ethan took to the stage once again. The grand hall was filled with former students, community leaders, and families whose lives had been transformed. His voice, though weathered by time, resonated with the passion of a man who had dedicated his life to art and hope. Tonight, we celebrate not only our achievements, but the enduring belief that every child deserves a chance to shine, Ethan said, his eyes glistening with both tears and pride. We honor the memory of Jessica Reed, a woman whose light never faded. Her legacy is not confined to the pages of our past. It lives on in every step, every leap, and every twirl of these young dancers. The audience responded with thunderous applause, a chorus of voices united by a shared vision of transformation and love. In the years that followed, as the centers continued to expand and flourish, Ethan and Lily's partnership evolved into something even more profound, a legacy of empowerment, compassion, and art that would echo through the generations. Their journey, marked by heartache and triumph, had become a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. As the story of Ethan, Lily, and the Jessica Reed Dance and Hope Center spread across the nation, they became symbols of what can be achieved when one refuses to let sorrow define the future. In every center, in every class, in every performance, the spirit of Jessica Reed lived on, a shining beacon for those who dared to dream, even in the face of overwhelming odds. And so, amid the twirling skirts, the pulsating music, and the joyful laughter of children who had once known nothing but despair, a new chapter of hope was written. One in which the transformative power of dance not only healed old wounds, but built bridges to a brighter, more inclusive tomorrow. What would you have done in his place? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more.